Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the show, Indestructible Souls. I am your host, Jonathan Beauregard. This is the podcast for mental wellness for African American men and boys. It is Sunday. I think it's February 5th. Not sure what date it is, but I'm back. It's been a long week. A lot still happening in media. A lot of things taking place. Um, they're still trying to figure out the Tyree Nichols thing and so forth. But today, you know, a lot of things are going on. And today I just kind of, I had a thought throughout the week that I wanted to talk about. And it's not necessarily, I don't know if I would consider it a thought, but as you know, my passion is talking about black men, young black men, and particularly, black boys. And so I got to thinking, and as a lot of black men are starting to come to therapy. Um, you know, I think I see more and more people, trying to really take care of their mental health. And sometimes we wonder why so many of our young black men, teenagers, adolescents, and, adult black men are so emotionally illiterate. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but not only not being able to identify their emotions, but also not being able to identify, but also not having sometimes the capacity to work through their emotions without destructive behavior. And so I got to thinking, and, you know, my personal belief is that a lot of things that happen to us, particularly to black men, we already know that it was part of the systematic playbook to not only to criminalize us, to demonize us, to dehumanize us, and to make us a part of this criminal justice system. And so, I always talk about the system, but there's a part of the system that we bought into that I want to talk about today, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time. And so, a lot of times people say, why do people still bring up slavery and so forth? Well, there was coming out of slavery, there was a design to destroy not only the black family, but to destroy black men in general. But there was something that we took out of, I believe, when it comes to discipline and consequences. There was something that we inherited that I think is time to get rid of, and it's time to basically take out of our culture, just like the N word and all that stuff. I personally think it's now time to, when it comes to whoopings and spankings, it is my belief that black boys should never be spanked nor whooped. It is my belief that we have to stop physically disciplining our children. But I'm gonna talk specifically about black boys and why I believe that corporal punishment and physically disciplining our kids it's well overdue that we stop doing it. For one, when we talk about, we always talk about, people being lynched, but slaves being whooped, and adopting that form of punishment. When we talk about whoopings and anger and trying to gain compliance and all that stuff, I know, and in my opinion, both personally and professionally, that corporal punishment and whooping black boys is not only detrimental to their psyche, it's detrimental to their emotional health, it's detrimental to our physical health, um, it's detrimental to our emotions. Here's the thing, a lot of us, we grow up in the church and the Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. Okay, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. And then a lot of us who were raised with whoopings and getting whoopings, sometimes now as an adult, we say, well, I stayed out of jail or I stayed out of prison or I stayed on the right path because I would get whoopings. Well, I challenge that because I also know that sometimes when we get to a certain place in life, we forget all of the emotional and mental anguish that we had to go through. And I know we wish that we could have got through a lot of that stuff without the whoopings. And without the, we talk about the switches, the extension cords, and all that stuff. Now I want you to, I know we in 2023, but I want you to imagine, why in the hell did the switch, which is a branch off the tree, why in the hell did that become the weapon of choice when disciplining black children? If that's not a direct correlation or a direct inheritance from the mindset of slavery, I don't know what is. Then we talked about extension cords and all the other things, fist or whatever it may be, that us 70s babies and 60s babies and 80s babies, I don't know about the 90s, had to go through when we talk about discipline. Think about that. What? And I'm not saying that our kids, that we were saints, but when you think about it progressively, even if your child got out of line, what would they do so bad that they deserved, or I should say we deserved, a switch and or an extension cord and or a belt? And sometimes the belt buckle. Now, I'm going to say black boys should never, and this, I'm not talking about black girls, they shouldn't be whooped either, physically. So, but particularly today, I'm talking about black boys. Never should hit, if we're going to change the narrative, if we're going to change the mindset, if we're going to change the emotional capacity of our young black men, obviously it starts in childhood. But I also think, and I'm not saying in no way, shape, form, or fashion that the whooping is our problem, but I am saying it is a problem. Now, here's why I say black boys should never be whooped. And I could go on and on and on about this. I know sometimes, when you have a toddler, you have a 2-year-old, 3-year-old, whatever, and they're going to touch something hot. They're going to put their hand in a light socket or whatever. Sometimes you may tap their hand or tap their bottom to correct them, because we believe that they don't have the vocabulary in the sense to understand discipline. Now, understand this. Children, when it comes to communication, they only retain 7% of what we say, and the other 93% is about expression, right? So if I show disappointment other than spank or whoop, not only will kids get the message, but if I add the vocabulary to it, kids will also learn and pick up on that as well. Let me get back on track. Now, I get sometimes we do that. However, if we are still whooping and spanking a kid after the age of 3 or 4 or 5, that is a testament to your poor parenting skills. That is a testament that you are trying nothing other than to gain compliance, nothing other than to punish, not discipline, not change behavior. That is a clear sign that you are frustrated as a parent and your goal is to punish and to inflict pain. Children, especially, I say after, and I'm not talking, definitely shouldn't be spanking a 2 or 3-year-old. But what I'm saying is, if we're spanking 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, that is a testament to poor parenting skills. Why do I say that? Well, if we are not teaching boundaries, if we are not teaching rules, if we are not giving logical consequences, if we are not teaching our kids, having conversation with our kids, and demonstrating by that age to where they know the basic rights from wrong, and our go-to is to have to spank because we have not garnered the respect or the relationship to gain compliance, then we're falling short. Now, here's the other thing. When we're talking about disciplining young kids, school-age kids, definitely if you're still whooping your kids by the age of 12, that's not a spanking, that's a fight. That's not a whooping. That's just a fight that's uneven because most likely they can't hit you back. But let me get into the psyche of it. Spanking and whooping black boys, what does it really teach? Does it change behavior? You might get compliance. Does it teach? Does it allow the capacity for mental and emotional well-being? My answer is no. When our go-to is corporal punishment, not only are we killing the spirit of a young boy, not only are we not giving them the emotional tools to navigate this life and develop into emotionally sound men, we are no more than tearing them down either into compliance and submission, or we are teaching them aggression and anger. In my opinion, there's no middle ground. When I say kill the spirit, you may have a kid that's hyper, or if you want to call them hyper, whatever it may be. And you may say, well, he's so well disciplined, and it's because, if it's because of spankings, my notion is that you've gained compliance because you have basically taught him and got him to submit to pain and punishment. What does that do to him later on in life? Does that give him the fortitude and the resiliency and the tenacity to take on this world with creativity, with a fearlessness, I'll say a calculated fearlessness, the resiliency and the creativity to navigate this world? Or the flip side of that, we basically promote aggression, anger, and emotional illiteracy. because all we do is teach anger, that people submit to pain, and we don't allow the capacity, or we don't allow or give our kids the different tools to learn in an emotional language, but more so to have the capacity to cope with, process through, think about, talk about the various emotions that most human beings experience. And then we wonder why, for most men, our emotional vocabulary and our emotional capacity are very limited. Because even as kids, what allows a kid to create or explore the various emotions and restraints that's going to allow them to be a sound man, in a lot of families, we call that being disrespectful, questioning, asking, standing up for themselves, emotional expression. We call that disrespect. Now, I'm not condoning disrespect, but what I am condoning or saying is that we have to, at a very early age, make it safe for emotional expression. And we only do that by one thing, is taking away corporal punishment when it comes to young Black boys. If your go-to is spanking, you need the parenting class, and they're also going to need some therapy, counseling, or whatnot. It's time that those things that we've have accepted as a Black community, that we've accepted as being a part of just who we are, it's time for us to challenge those things, particularly whoopings on today's topic. Whoopings and spankings and shaming by name calling and cursing and all those things. All those things do is teach aggression. It doesn't promote emotional literacy. It doesn't promote emotional restraint or composure. And then we wonder why later on down in life, we struggle in the community and we struggle in relationships. And so, what's the alternative? The alternative is, I say, pick up a book, but and learn various ways. And I know people don't like picking up books sometimes and want to whatever. But what I really want to say is being creative in how we teach behavior, being creative in how we shape behavior. Not every infraction requires punishment. It may require teaching. It may require understanding. It may require doing something different other than spanking. Not to say that they get away with it, but the goal is to shape behavior, and the goal is to leave their spirits intact. And also, the goal is to equip them to be sound emotionally and mentally. So when we talk about the alternative is parents slowing down and responding to behavior with the goal of changing the behavior and the kid ending off better than what they started, and not reacting out of anger and frustration with the sole purpose of being punishment and inflicting pain. The reality is that we could talk about all of the things that contribute to the demise of the Black man, but I think one of them starts very early, and that's the corporal punishment and the spanking. And if that's going to be the go-to, and I say it like this, if the only way to get compliance from your child is to spank them, then when they're adults, the only way to get compliance from them is for somebody else to spank them, which would be the court system, law enforcement, their husband, their wife, and so forth. We have to shift and we have to change some of the traditions that we've accepted as a part of who we are, so we can not only continue to progress, but that by the time our boys get out of high school, mentally and emotionally, they're not having to work through all of this trauma, this normalized trauma, on top of building themselves up as men. And this is also why a lot of men struggle in intimate relationships. So what I'm saying is, at this time, I believe, and I'll stand on, we should eradicate corporal punishment in the Black community. We have to. If we're ever going to get better, not only as a people, community, and family, that can no longer be the go-to. Yet again, this is Jonathan Beauregard. I am the host of Indestructible Souls. I am also the proprietor of Beauregard Therapy. A lot of things are happening. 2023 is already starting off great with expansion and so forth. You can reach me at Facebook, YouTube, and also at BeauregardTherapy.com. And I am your host, Jonathan Beauregard, and you guys enjoy your evening.